Comprised of over 3,000 individual reef systems, the Australian Great Barrier Reef is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. It's larger than the Great Wall of China and the only living thing on Earth visible from space. The entire living organism contains some of the most diverse collections of marine life on the planet, the largest living structure on the planet in Australia's own backyard. The tourism value alone generated by the Great Barrier Reef is said to be over $6.4 billion each year. With the changing climate due to the man-made industrial revolution, protection of this natural resource and environment is the responsibility of all Australians. The continued mining expansion and burning of coal and fossil fuels is directly connected to the loss of this natural ecosystem. Frakes, Brereton and Moran sum up the impacts of coal mining in respect to the environment and social human systems and the government's approaches. The expansion and contraction of the coal mining industry in Australia has placed pressure on regional communities and environments and multiplied the extent, magnitude and profile of cumulative impacts. While some mining communities have benefited through the expansion of the coal industry through the creation of jobs and investment economies, the compounding impacts of multiple mining operations have stretched environmental, social, human and economic systems and rendered conventional mine-by-mine government approaches ineffective. It's up to all of us to do something. The hegemonic struggle between the big business, coal mining and the environmental concerns of the people has been a big problem for many Australians. The Great Barrier Reef has experienced a decline of over 50% due to coral bleaching since the 90s and is hitting a critical point with the loss of this diverse ecosystem. Even as early as 1994, Swan, Neff and Young identified the connection between the discharge of offshore oil and gas exploration and their impact on the marine environment, saying that it is widely recognised that uncontrolled discharge of petroleum products and other materials from offshore oil and gas exploration and produced wells, and their associated industrial operations including treatment and service facilities that are required to be on or near the coast, can have a direct and sometimes deleterious impacts on the marine environment. I propose to design and build a sonic sculpture that functions as an audio installation, using organ pipes connected and sculptured into the shape of coral formations. The sculpture is designed to be installed outdoors, and the natural wind will blow through the pipes, creating a low droning sound. The effect and sound is designed to have an eerie effect that represents the coral dying. The coral will be bleached white from the bottom half and colourful and moving in the wind on the top half, bringing attention to the fact that the coral is a living creature and that global warming and bleaching is killing one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. It will serve as an anti-coal statement piece with piles of coal-shaped rocks surrounding the base and solar and wind power generators on the top half powering the lighting system at night time. This sculpture is a call to arms to remind people that the living natural wonder is dying due to our intervention in the climate and directly in mining that is going on or proposed on a larger scale in North Queensland. The sculpture will bring attention to the connection between the mining and the bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef, a reminder that it is a living organism that we are killing. I aim to reach an audience with a more direct and emotional connection via physical sculpture and sound generates. Sonic sculptures can be more direct in generating emotional effect in people. The combination of visual aesthetics and the auditory effect can be a powerful translating this message. Sound or sonic sculptures are more effective than typical structures, drawing in the audience with a combination of the visual and auditory senses. The kinetic movement of the sculptures in the wind will also add interest and draw the viewer in for a closer look and more detailed analysis. I aim to have the sculpture being interactive through the use of oil pump levers that will push air into the pipes and generate a louder droning sound. A sound sculpture is somehow the earliest form of sound art. Suffice it to think about the lithophone Japanese stone bells, where the stone vibrates when struck by a mallet. Diachronically speaking, it was the data movement that ritualized such tension thanks to the avant-garde and starting with Marcel Duchamp, A Brute Secret, a ball of twine containing an unknown object producing a sound when shaken, and Man Ray's Indestructible Object, a metronome with a photograph of an eye and a pendulum. Following on from my 2017 sonic sculpture Migaloo Song, I aim to generate a more permanent installation. Migaloo Song was a 10-metre-long kinetic wind harp shaped at a 1:1 scale of Migaloo the white whale. It is the largest rigid-body steel string harp in the world, with 310 metres of strings tuned to E major 7. It performs a complex 3-part whale song composed to match the humpback whale songs in nature. It won the Environmental Awareness Award and the People's Choice Award at the 15th Swell Sculpture Festival on the Gold Coast, while representing Migaloo, one of the natural visitors to the east coast of Australia. The sound generated by the wind was also recorded and collaborated with local musicians into a song called We Become the Fire. The profits from the sale of this song went to Sea Shepherd Australia and also brought awareness to the natural connection between humans and the humpback whales through music. The combination of physical sculpture and audio generation by nature created a connection between the natural world and science, bringing the ocean, the humpback whale's life to the people on the beach at the festival. With the concept being based on coral formations, the actual form of the sculpture will be one large coral piece approximately 5 by 5 by 3 metres and be made primarily by steel organ pipes with fiberglass wrapping to be shaped into the form of coral. The bottom half of the sculpture will be bleached white and the top half will be still living with vivid colours and moving attachments that represent the living and breathing coral. The organ pipes will be placed with tunings from 4 directional sides so that the tones produced will be harmonious and depend on the wind direction to choose the chords. The effect created by the droning sounds and bleach bottom structure will attempt to mimic a marine graveyard. The movement created at the top of the sculpture will follow kinetic work by Anthony Howe and help create the feeling that coral is living. This movement, covered in colour, will contrast with the static bleached white base of the coral structure. Moving past the concept of music and sound being delivered in a linear function, the sonic sculpture creates a more immersive experience for the listener in the installation's location at the time of the viewing. Pascal Neal-Apollo discusses the potential of sound art to be more immersive in his article about sonic sculptures. The combination of sound and sculpture in Australia is considered to be of high artistic worth in art circles. The use of physics and art in the setting is a more immersive environment for the audience and helps to translate the meaning of the piece in a more direct way than an innate structure. The droning sounds generated from the wind blowing through the pipes will be in the key of D minor and B minor from either northerly and southerly or eastern and westerly breezes respectively. Utilising lower and mid harmonic pipes that will resonate about 35 to 70 dB depending on the wind speed. The use of the wind to generate the sounds will create a breathing effect on the sound and tones in addition to the moving parts on the top half. It will create effect of the living coral. The intention is to contrast the living aspects of the coral and that it is dying due to our effect of global warming and directly coal mining in Australia. The droning sound will attempt to mimic the quiet eeriness of the graveyard, the pipes of the funeral procession, the low solemn tones in respect to bereavement. The emotional impact of the concept of death and funeral can be a powerful motivator in reaching the audience with this topic. Duffy discusses this impact in his sound ecologies. Sound is not simply a physiological outcome of hearing sonic qualities and therefore merely a background to what is happening in the everyday. Rather, what goes undetected are the ways in which certain sounds are accorded particularly personal and ideologically loaded meaning that have an emotional impact. Although not everyone has the same reaction to sounds, the combination of the visual and audio will help direct the intention of the sculpture towards the view of the slow, sad passing of our living reef due to the mining and its impact on one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. The large visual display of the oversized coral will help bring attention to the scale of the issue, setting an aesthetic display and contradiction between the vivid, colourful coral sprouting life surrounded by renewable energy vices and the dying bleached white parts surrounded by the coal. The solar and wind generators at the top suggest that there is a way that we can have energy and thrive in a sustainable ecosystem. The piece also shows that although it is dying, it is not dead yet, and though our impact has been negative, the fact that we can have an impact suggests that we could also make it a positive one. The focus for the solution will be that of renewable energy systems instead of coal mining. We can save the Great Barrier Reef. The sonic sculpture is intended directly for people attending the Swell Festival, the Commonwealth Games, and also Sculptures by the Sea in Sydney. A blend of the artistic community and the public. The sculpture will be artistically and aesthetically pleasing as a visual piece of man-made natural form, and the addition of the sound element will draw more emotion from the viewer towards the intention of the piece. Other kinetic pipe organ sculptures I've sourced for inspiration include the Wave Organ by Peter Richards and George Gonzalez in San Francisco, which uses wave and tidal movements to amplify the sound and water of the ocean. The Singing Tree by Tolkien Liu Architects in Burnley, UK, a collection of steel pipes that utilise the wind to create sound. The Aeolus at Eden project by Luke Jerram in the UK, a large kinetic wind-powered pipe structure. And the Zeta Sea Organ by Nikola Basic in the town of Zeta in Croatia, a wave and tidal-driven sculpture and instrument. In all of the examples above, it is the combination of visual and sound that deliver the meaning. Although the intention and meaning of the creators is up for interpretation by the audience, all also require a physical visit to fully appreciate the pieces of one-off sculptures. Video and audio recordings can simulate the experience, but the location in which the pieces are set play an integral role. The piece will force the audience not only to consume the visuals, but also encourage them to decode the meaning of the sculpture. The strong visual statement from the coal piles and the bleached coral will hint at the purpose, and the eerie morbid sounds will evoke strong emotional reactions and feelings towards the uncomfortable topic of death. The surrounding landscapes of the beach and the ocean on the Gold Coast and Sydney complements the structure and create sounds or pieces of music that are time dependent for those locations, the wind and tidal changes that exist in that movement as well. Moving around the sculpture, the audience will experience different sonic effects and visual perspectives. George Klein discusses the perception of sound sculptures on the environment in his 2009 book Sight Sounds on strategies of sound and art in public space. It was not until the development of sound installation art that space was discovered in a concrete manner. The specificity of a certain place could be brought out. Sound artists work with the atmosphere of a particular space, its acoustic conditions, and its visual and architectonic characteristics, to which they carefully give new timbre or which they present dramatically through the medium of sound. The sound of a space is no longer one of several compositional dimensions, but moves to the centre of perception as sound space, as space that is made to be resound, which is reflected in the behaviour of the recipient. If the visual focus of a performing musician ensemble is removed, and listeners are no longer compelled to sit in fixed seats but can move around freely within that space, a much stronger spatial perception is possible. The location and environment are integral for the aesthetics and the concept of the sculpture. As Klein suggests, the sound installation art creates a concrete space in which the acoustics and timbre of the sound interact with the user as they explore the sculpture, walking around it, hearing and visualizing the changes that exist in that space. The effect will be contradictory, viewing the beauty of the top half of the coral, the movement, and the harmonious sounds set against the dying graveyard on the bottom half. Intended to bring up uncomfortable feelings of remorse and the death of a living creature due to man-made use of coral and burning fossil fuels. Going back to Duffy's 2010 book Sound Ecologies, the audio and sonic qualities of the sculpture can also affect how we listen and how we think. Maybe too we need to distinguish how we hear from how we listen. John Luke Nancy defines hearing in terms of understanding and comprehension. While listening is an experience of sound, in which we don't fully interpret the experience, listening then is perhaps more aligned to our emotional and bodily responses than to our sonic environments. Such a framework has implications for understanding the role of sound in social processes and placemaking. Sound is not simply a background to the world. Instead, our social relationships help comprise particular spatial contexts, and sound provide a range of effective affordances appropriated by individuals to deeply inform not only how to move and mingle, but crucially, how to think. I intend to encourage awareness of the Great Barrier Reef and the troubles that we are facing with fossil fuels through my sculpture. I hope that we can help reach people, and through the sound and art of the sculpture, change the world.